All right, so this is the slide we ended on last time. We're talking about social connections is where we're at. And we've drawn several models where we talked about nodes and edges, where we're trying to connect people together. And remember we said we can map the potential social complexity of a group with this equation to find out how many potential edges there are. Now, we said there's some problems with the simplistic notion of this. And we need to talk about the strength of connections. It's where we're going to head for in this class. And what you can think in this model is, okay, if I want to talk about the strength of a particular connection, all right, here's me, here's someone else, does time seem to affect the strength of a connection? I mean, all things considered equal, we might imagine if I've had a friend for 5 years, 10 years, that the connection is going to be stronger, right? So time might be a factor. What about positive experiences? Does that sound like a relevant factor? Right? If we've taken a wonderful vacation together, that might add some more strength to this. We might ask, does it seem to matter? Which one seems to matter, the number or the frequency of these positive ones? I mean, there's some research on these questions. Like, think about it. You've all had, well, none of y'all are perfect people. But I've had fights with my significant others, and research shows that you need to have at least 5 positive to weigh out that 1 negative. Really? Yeah. It's not 1-to-1. You can't simply get in a fight and then go, sorry, and you're back even. So we do have this issue of how many positive experiences. And also other issues like the relationship itself may be, like if I go, oh, we're friends, we're BFFs, or we're best friends, or we're lovers, or husband-wife, whatever, that might also play a role there. Like if this person is my mother, right, it's like being the mom is also going to have, for most people, a series of interconnections there that we might need to figure into this. So this is what we're going to do here. But now I need your clickers because I have a theoretical question for you. Before we move on, does this make sense though? That this only tells us in the most simplistic way the possibilities, but to really turn this into a useful psychological theory, we have to really address these kinds of questions. Is there a limit to personal social complexity? What do you think? Like, if there is, how would I measure this limit? Right? I have a friend on Facebook who has 1,200 Facebook friends. Anyone know anybody with more than 1,200? Yeah. How many is yours?
5,000. 5,000.
They have 5,000.
Yeah, because you can't have more than 5,000 friends on Facebook. It like cuts off at 5,000.
Well.
Darn.
Can you even really have 5,000 other than James Spann? Right? Can you have 5,000 friends? I mean, if you were thinking of this, what might be the limit to your real social complexity?
Max, you can say 50 at max.
So you think 50? But you think way below 5,000?
Yeah.
You think 20, 50? So when we think of social complexity, though, we don't just mean your friends. We also mean the people you work with and that you just sort of run into, and you sort of keep track. And you go, hey, how was today? How was your kid? And they go, my kid's great. You don't care, but you're like, oh, that's cool. And you go on. The people you sit next to in class, right? That also can be included in the social complexity number. Think of it as what might be the limit of people that you can regularly interact with and keep up with. That's one issue. But y'all are sort of getting a narrower one of how many close friends can you really, really keep up with.
So even if you say hi to somebody and talk to them for about 10 seconds, that's...
We would probably not include that number, but you sit next to her 3 times a week in class, right? And y'all have, how are you? I'm fine, whatever. That might get included in the sense that you recognize her and y'all have at least that. It's not just hi. Right? I mean, this
you can narrow it to like how many, like if the narrow definition of friend is like, I would say like, if you really want to have that closeness and that personal, it would really be more than 5 to 10.
So what I'm trying to hear though is this issue, like, there are going to be people that are sort of in the periphery of your life, right? Like your dentist, like my dentist, I see him twice a year, 3 times at most. You know, he's part of my social complexity, and since every time I go, it's like, hey, how are you doing, Dr. Andrews, I think's his name. Oops. You know, Dr. Andrews. So he's on the periphery, and then there's people that I see more frequently, and then there's the real close people in my life. So we can do this, but if you imagine outside a certain point, like I really don't even know who these people are, right? I just, you know, the person who checks me out at Winn-Dixie, you know, they're not part of my social complexity world, even if it's the same person, right? My dentist would be out here. That's all we're trying to get at. It's like what, you know, a coworker that you pass in the hallway, but regularly enough to where you recognize them. You're like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Blah blah blah. So, what might be the limit to this? So that's what we're trying to get at. What might be the limit to all of this? Well, some people have tried to deal with this question. And one of the things that's been done is people have tried to correlate the size of the neocortex. So here's where this argument fits into the general theme of this course so far. We saw with cellular dependence that the more cells devoted to something, the more important it was. The neocortex seems to be important for higher intellectual functioning. And what you find here is there's a positive correlation between the group size of a species and its neocortex size. And the star there is, guess who? Humans. So this has led to a suggestion, which is sometimes called Dunbar's number, of how many people we can typically keep track of in some way. And so we're going to get to the more specific question of best friend. We know we can go ahead and ask y'all that question. So this is a more general question, but if we were going to ask about best friends, how many best friends, did we ask this last time?
No, we asked how many close friends we had.
How many close friends you have, and the average was somewhere around, I believe,
3.
in the neighborhood of 3. We can ask another question related so I can give y'all some credit. But that's sort of one number of how many people you really can keep track of. But Dunbar's number was how many people you can keep track of in this broad sense. And he argued that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 150. And there's several reasons for this 150. Now, he gave a range. It's a range. But he noticed that hunter-gatherer societies tend to break up into groups at about 150. That is, if it gets much larger than 150, they split off. If you look at some modern-day social groups, such as the Hutterites, they also do the same thing. About 150, they form 2 different groups. So this 150 number shows up a little more frequency than we might imagine. There's some other examples of this 150 number. If you look in history, the 6th century Irish monk had a rule, or this particular monk had a rule that his monastic communities couldn't be larger than 150. If they got bigger, they broke off into smaller groups. So many people have argued that this 150 number seems to be about right. So that if you include your dentist, the people you pass, and the person you sit next to in a class, whoever you regularly interact with, pretty much after 150, so you're 5,000 people, you know, the friends you have, it's like, how many of them do they actually interact with?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine probably some, but it's much, much less than 5,000. You know, I don't even know if I know 5,000 people. So, if we're trying to look at this number, this Dunbar's number, estimates are around 150. But you have a range that's like down to 125 to 250 or something. So, here would be a way we could ask this, yeah.
Actually, so how does that factor in as like you get older and you meet new people, but then like you had in the past like people that you went to like elementary school with and you still know them and you're like, hey, hi, how are you?
Okay.
Like how does that?
Okay, so so your argument is, okay, so here we have age and number of friends, right? Because you know, the older, so one theory is it's going to be linear because I've had more time to meet. But there's something that's going to happen. That's a good suggestion. One thing's going to happen. Something else happens as people age. Well, we just lose contact, right? Like, you know, we were friends in elementary school, but, you know, you went to a different middle school than me, so, you know, the number drops back down a little bit until I make new friends, you know, and then it might go up, it might go back down. People get married, they have kids, they start doing things. I mean, you know, in my own life, like, I have some really good friends that I used to see 5 times a week. But now they're married with kids, and it's been, you know, a month.
Right, but how does that factor into, like, Dunbar's number?
It would be included. Like, you would include, it's people that you regularly interact with. And however you want to define regularly,
Okay.
yeah, it's part of the vagaries of this question. But, because this is a sort of different way of thinking about the issue. And so they go, well, because people go, well, you know, I still remember my friend from elementary school. Do you interact with them? Or is it just, hey, on Facebook once every 5 months? It's like, is that really part of your social world? And you go, well. And so, think of Dunbar more this way, of trying to at least quantify something that people haven't even tried to quantify before. And it's certainly, but when you start doing it, you think it's got to be less than 5,000. You know, it's got to be less than 1,000. You know, probably more than 1. I hope it's more than 1. So somewhere between 1 and 1,000. Okay, now let's see if we can narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down. And 150 seems a good guess, and it does match the neocortex data. So I was going to ask you on this question though about this adding and subtracting thing was, how often do y'all clean out your friends list?
No.
So obviously one choice would be never. You never clean them out. Every friend is simply additive. Anyone want to give their number so we can actually get a number of choices?
Maybe like once every 5 months.
So like, you know, every half. Let's round it up.
Once a year.
What if you're not on Facebook?
You sad. Don't send me a friend request. Once a year, let's say, let's just go, let's just do 4. More than once a year. Oh, sorry. Or I guess it'd be less than once a year, right? It's like you clean it out less than once a year. This is you clean it out every year. This is you do it less than once a year.
Well, then that would be half a year.
Yeah. Or never.
No, less, like the frequency of it is less.
So it'd be 2 years or.
Yeah, 2 years or 3 years
Oh,
or 4 years.
okay.
Yes, yes.
We were like, full book.
For those watching the video at home, it's the smoke. Does it make sense now? Okay.
It's not like that.
Yeah, it's the smoke from the fire that we had that my class didn't leave.
What about every like 3-4 months?
I guess, you know, approximately half a year, you know, like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to do it every month, so I think.
What about based on a number of friends?
Okay, I'll give you that option. So you can change your choices, but you do it based on number of friends. Like, you're like, I'm only going to keep 150 of my nearest and dearest, right? That's certainly a viable option. You can change your choices. You can always revote to just hit another number if this happens to matter. 5, 4, 3. I'm just curious. Just a curiosity factor, and y'all are not giving me any kind of consistency in your answers. Although it is kind of intriguing that about a third of y'all never do this. I find that intriguing. I wouldn't have guessed that.
What, that one?
That many people never clean it out. Because I'm more of a.
I don't care enough to clean it up. That's what it is.
It's a combination of not caring
Yeah.
and then like I don't want to delete
like-
someone and then get all offended.
Right.
For, like no real reason.
I'll just let you if you want to delete
Because
me,
it doesn't hurt
delete
me.
me.
I can ignore them really well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I voted never because I don't have one, so.
Okay. Well, then you and Byron can be not Facebook
Yeah.
friends. Actually, this is just, I'm kind of intrigued. I know there are at least 2. Okay, do you have Facebook? I guess A, yes, B, no. I'm just, just curious. Like, it's anonymous. I have better things to do than look at your responses. Oh, sorry. But apparently the rest of the class doesn't. It's like, why don't I show it in real time? I'm just curious. I thought everybody had, you have MySpace? What do you
Oh, somewhere out
I
there.
wonder who the 2 people are. It's less anonymous than I had imagined.